Monday, and it's the Bob McCown podcast. Yours truly, along with John Shannon and no guest.
What?
We don't do that very often. And we just had a bunch of things on our mind, and we've been giving a lot of time to guests lately. Some of whom have been worth it, and some of whom I'm not so sure, but nonetheless.
By the way, Bob, this is the day before Groundhog Day. And just because the fact that you have seen me, that means you get 6 more weeks of me. So
this is the first day of February, is it not?
Yes, it is. 6 more weeks, Bob. I can tell you're overjoyed. I can tell you're overjoyed.
Well, I'm not overjoyed, but I don't believe in Groundhog Day, and I'm not surprised that you think it has some validity. I mean, historically, the chances of Groundhog Day being accurate are
0.
50-50. No, 50-50.
Oh, well.
It's exactly 50.
But it was a hell of a movie.
Well, we're not talking about the movie. We're talking about Groundhog Day specifically.
Holy smokes.
The movie is an entirely different
Monday morning.
Would you like to talk about the movie?
Memo to management. Bob should not do Monday mornings.
But Bob should never do Monday anything.
Well, except
morning, afternoon, or evening.
No. If you had a 1 o'clock tea time in the Bahamas, you'd do 1 o'clock on Monday.
Well, it'd have to be in the Bahamas because the Cheeseball Golf Club that I'm a member of isn't open on Mondays.
Hey, I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday in Victoria. You know what he was doing yesterday?
I want to hear this.
You know what he was doing yesterday? No, he was playing golf.
Well, playing golf, cutting the grass. Yeah. Well.
Oh man. And he started to laugh at me. He says, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm watching hockey." He says, "You need a life."
Well,
I'm going to. He says, "No, I'm going to play golf." I said, "Oh, that's not fair. Not fair at all."
Well, it is fair. You could get off your fat keister and go and live out there. That's where you're from,
Yes, I know. Well, no, people from the island are different than people from.
Well, I get it. So,
but yes, I am a British Columbian.
Well, you're here by choice, and especially now you're.
No, I actually tell people I live in exile. I tell people
exile, Ontario. Yeah,
that's right. I tell people in BC I live in exile, and when I go home, I tell them I'm here in exile. So.
Well, why are you still here? I mean, for a long time you had your career here. However miserable.
Is it over?
Pretty much, yeah. I got
really. Oh yeah, man, no way.
And,
no way.
Well, but now you don't have the attachment that you once had. What is it that keeps you here?
I have a house.
You can sell that house,
really,
and then buy another one in. Where are you from?
You know what?
Are you from Kelowna?
No, I'm from a little town about 60 miles south of Kelowna, in the Okanagan Valley. Yes, that's
okay,
right.
But it's generally that area.
Yes, yeah, beautiful.
Well, what's keeping you here?
Well, we have kids. We have friends.
Your kids are grown.
One of them lives here. So we don't,
in the house still?
Oh, no. Are you kidding me?
Well, that's the thing, John.
Out.
You have identified the specifics of the criteria or criterium for which staying here would be mandated.
Here's the
and that is the kid is living in the house. Your kids aren't in the house anymore.
I like it here in Toronto. I like Toronto.
Well, but all you do is bellyache about.
Hold on.
BC is
great.
Well,
but I like Ontario too.
This program.
What started this program was you being crabby. That's what started this program.
Well, that's what you started that conversation. But then you immediately morphed into your friend who's playing golf on Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
Well,
holy smokes, though.
You don't even have to get a COVID test. Do you?
Well, they might. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Just get on the plane and go.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, I might.
Or load up the VW bus or whatever vehicle you driving these days.
Like the Beverly Hillbillies? Loaded up the trunk.
Isn't that interesting? Because I this just like out of the blue. We used to see each other every day.
Yes.
and almost invariably would walk down to the parking lot together, and many times arrived at the station at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And I always knew what car you had. And now I have no idea. It's been a couple of years, so I have no idea. Are you still driving the same? You had a
Yes,
Mercedes, didn't you?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, you
I
do
do.
still? Same
Yeah.
one? Or
Yeah.
you got a new one?
No. Same one. I'm not. I'm not one of those guys that changes cars. I don't. I'm not really a respect cars guy. I just don't. I need a vehicle.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I need a vehicle. I'm not worried about status or worried about anything. I just need a vehicle. So
Years ago, I got a, it's got to be 10, 12, 15 years ago. I got an Escalade. And I got it because
it's about the same size as Rhode Island, by the way.
exactly. But we used to go on a family trips, and there were kids and there were moms, and you couldn't fit them all into one car. And we would occasionally we'd do road trips. We'd go down to Connecticut. And with the Escalade, you got the third row of seating. So
what would you do in what would you do in Connecticut? I'm not sure.
well,
What would you do
I
in
gamble and I
Connecticut?
play
Oh,
golf.
yeah.
And the girls would go to Rhode Island, which is like 20 minutes away, and sit on the beach on the Atlantic Ocean. So it was a little something for everybody. Like there's like a 9-10 hour drive. So I got the big ass truck to accommodate all of those people. Well, now it's me. Everybody else.
Would you like a dog? I could get you a dog.
I don't even have my dog anymore.
No, but I could get it. I have an extra one. I have an extra dog.
I'm not taking your dog, and you're not offering me your dog.
You're not taking Kevin?
Kevin it's a con. You're not giving up Kevin.
No, Kevin's great.
So, and I'm contemplating a dog. But 3-4 weeks ago, my car guy picks up the phone, calls me, and says, "Bob, the lease on the Escalade is almost up. What do you want to do?" And he'd actually sent me one of the smaller Cadillacs to drive around in. I forget what it's called. The something 6, XT6 or CT. I don't know what it is. And it was a very nice car, but I just
it's an SUV too, though, right?
Yeah, it's a small one,
Okay.
And the only comment I got from the less than a handful of people who knew I had it for a couple of days to try it out was, it's a mom's car. It's the car mom goes to pick the kids up at school in. And of course that turned me off completely. But I want something that I don't have to put snow tires on. I want something I can drive during the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Something that'll get up the hills and So I have a new one coming, a new car coming.
Really? Another Cadillac?
Another Escalade.
Oh, because you need all that space.
I don't know. I just can't. I mean, I guess we're at an age where you can't decide anything anymore. And so rather than change, you just go, to hell with it. I'll just get another one. And I have no idea why. 99 times out of 100, I'm the only person in the truck. The only person. Big ass truck. I used to think this is great. Now I can go to Home Depot and get whatever I want. I just put it in the back of the truck. I don't go to Home Depot anymore. It's COVID.
Well, you can't. Yeah.
Well, I don't, but you can't. I don't.
Yeah.
I go and get my 2 bags of groceries every few days. Well, I could be on a bicycle and take those home. I don't need a big ass truck.
No, I would pay money to see that.
Well, I wouldn't go on a bicycle. I don't have a bicycle anymore.
I have an extra bicycle. Would you like it?
Well, it's a leftover from one of the kids that abandoned you. That's all it is.
But it's a nice
I'm not
bicycle.
taking your leftover.
It's a nice bicycle. Well, I worry about you.
Don't worry about me. And where are you going to go in the snow on a bicycle?
Wow.
Which is another thing. here in Toronto, now I know we have people that watch and listen to this program all over the world.
By the way, we are the #1 podcast in the Cayman Islands.
Well, good for us.
Number one.
How many people are there in the Cayman Islands? I've never.
Well, apparently, according to our company, there's one person, and they get measured, and they listen to us. So we're #1 in the Cayman Islands.
Giddy up.
We're number 1 in hockey in Chile.
Really?
Yes. Yes. So hello to all you loyal listeners on the Cayman Islands and in Chile.
Like I said, there are people from all over the world that listen to this, but they have no interest really in the weather situation or the trials and tribulations of living in the great metropolis of Toronto.
But that's what old people do. They talk about the weather.
Well, I'm not talking about the weather. I look out your window. So we here in Toronto, at great cost, and I don't think my friend John Tory is singularly responsible for this, but I blame him anyway. He is the mayor of Toronto. The city is littered with bike lanes. Littered. Everywhere you go, they've taken chunks of road. They haven't added width to the roads. No. What they've done is they've taken entire lanes and put markings all over them and said, this is for bicycles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you know how many people ride bicycles for 6 months of the year in Toronto? Almost nobody.
That's not true.
Oh, well, downtown, I'm not giving them a whole lane.
Downtown, there's a lot of people still riding bikes.
And here's the other thing. Then you get out onto the road and you're minding your own damn business and there's a bike lane there. And then some guy on a bike zooms across in front of you to make a left-hand turn. Are bicycles supposed to make left-hand turns from the left-hand turn driving lane? Or are they supposed to stop on the corner and do what pedestrians do?
That is an excellent question, Robert.
I don't even know the answer to that.
We should talk to the traffic department. No, I don't.
They have their own lane, but then they want to take mine too.
If you've been around the world, for all those people around the world, by the way, we're number 12 in Denmark as well. If you go to Denmark, they actually have traffic lights for bicycles. When you stop
at lights.
Yeah, and they're massive. So if you sit in Copenhagen at a traffic, because it addresses the issue you're talking about. Because they're sitting in the bike lane, and there's tons of people that ride their bikes all the time in Copenhagen. What happens is that the light will allow them to turn left at the intersection, and then you're just sitting in your car waiting for.
Oh, you got to wait for them.
Oh yeah. Well, and they wait for you when your light goes. So but the light's about 17 times larger than our traffic lights because they've added all these lights for bicycles.
If bicycles were made to be driven on roads, why are bicycles not allowed on highways? Answer me that.
Because the cars are going a little faster, Bob.
I don't care.
Cars are going a little faster.
Roads were not built for bicycles. When I grew up, there were no bicycle lanes. And
they're not. Do you want
no bicycles? But
you're the type of guy. You're the type of guy that if you're walking down the street on the sidewalk and a guy rides his bike on the sidewalk,
you like that? That's where bicycles belong.
See,
on the sidewalk.
I hate those guys.
On the sidewalk.
It's not called a side ride. It's called a sidewalk.
Don't care.
I do.
The city is littered
I got 2 dogs
sidewalks.
I'm walking 2 dogs.
Littered with sidewalks that no one walks on.
Not in my
they don't
neighborhood.
Walk on sidewalks anymore. They walk in the road. They walk in the park. They do this, that, and the other thing. Bayview Avenue, which is just out here, as you well know, John. Sidewalk,
yes,
all the way up.
Beautiful.
I can shoot a cannon off every 15 minutes from one end to the other and not hit anybody if I aim it down the sidewalk. There's no one on the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's COVID though, Bob. There's lots of people riding. Walking.
There's more people walking with COVID, not less, John.
Really?
How did we get onto this topic?
Well, you were crabby.
Well, that shouldn't come as any great surprise.
And you bought it, and you have a new car coming.
Yeah, I don't know when actually.
Oh.
I think like May.
Okay.
They have to order these things, you know?
So now, did you watch the Raptors last night?
Well, I watched a very little bit of it, of the Raptors last night. I mean, I watched the first quarter and then I flipped it back on a little bit later, um, and they were comfortably in front. And so I found other things to do and then saw the score. They won by what, 13 or something?
Yeah. I must admit, there's not many guys I recognize on that team anymore.
The Raptors or Orlando?
Yes.
Oh, either?
Yeah. Well, Orlando, but I think there's only 5 guys less from the championship. 5.
Well, yeah, because the bench guys constantly change, though. That's not unusual in the NBA, John. You should know that.
Yeah. But this might be Nick Nurse's best coaching. I know they don't have a winning record. I think they're 8-11. This might be Nick Nurse's best coaching period with what he's got to work with.
Well, I don't know it's best. I think his impact is greatest now. But the dilemma that he faces, which is what all teams face, is you really don't get time to practice. You really don't get time to work on things. You don't get those, and it's not just, you know yourself. It's hockey, baseball, basketball. They're all saying one day you don't get much. You need 2 or 3 days at least in a row in order to implement things and make changes that are effective, and the schedule doesn't permit that, or at least hasn't so far. And I don't think it's going to very often this season. So he's stuck with what he's stuck with. And frankly, I think this team is life and death to make the playoffs.
Well,
I don't think they're better than what they've shown.
Yeah, they might not be good enough for the playoffs. They might, but you know what? Just because it's COVID and just because they're not playing here doesn't mean they can't make trades and they can't do something.
That's an issue. We're going to discuss this a bit. I think Wednesday,
Yeah.
Smith and Jones are scheduled to join us. So that's the topic I want to get into. So I don't want to do too much today, but last night's victory included, not aside, but included. I'm not sure this team is anywhere near good enough. And if you're Masai Ujiri, I assume he is thinking about what direction he goes. I know that with Antetokounmpo off the board now, the free agent list at the end of this season isn't very promising. There's some guys, but there are no game changers.
Right.
And what Masai has done in the past, as we know, is he's made trades in order to get the game changer if he needs it. Now, I don't know who that is, but I can tell you this. This is a fringe at best playoff team right now, unless he does something fairly dramatic. And he and Webster don't have contracts that we know of for next year. And that concerns me.
Everybody says that Bobby Webster has a contract sitting in a drawer. I mean, anybody that we've had on the show,
I don't know.
And they just haven't announced it. But who knows? The interesting thing,
with due respect to Bobby Webster, do you know who makes the call on all the deals? I know Bobby does a lot of the spade work, and maybe these deals are more his than Masai's. But Masai doesn't say that. Masai is perfectly willing to take credit
I know,
for the deals that have been made. And we in the media, or whatever we are inclined to give him the credit for those deals. Are we not?
No, we are. There's no question. Listen, what the Raptors have in their front office is basically the 21st century design of what front offices look like in almost every
the multi-headed monster.
Yeah. And in the end, where does the buck stop? It stops at and it really actually stops after Masai. But if there's full trust from like MLSE, it stops at Masai's desk. Once Bobby Webster has probably done most of the work.
Well, I mean, you don't have the core of a championship franchise. You don't have young players that we are seeing glimpses of that may become something. Now, Flynn, we've seen a little bit of, and who the hell knows what he's going to be. But who else? We haven't got, there's no young players on this team right now. Like, I mean, guys that are in their first or second year, and you say, oh, well, man, 2 or 3 years ago, we had Van Vliet, we had Siakam, guys who were ready to mature.
But they've committed to those two guys, and they've committed to, and Anunoby's supposed to be part of this, if and when he's always ever healthy, right? That it's an interesting. It's an interesting question to bring up.
Is that nucleus good enough?
I don't think it is, but
neither do I.
So, but the other thing is I think behind the scenes, when you consider, again, this will probably be deeper on Wednesday, when you consider the amount of revenue this team isn't making, at what point does management sit there and say, is this the year we just take our time? Do we go out and, what's the point in getting James Harden if they could have?
Well, Harden,
if they want it. No, but if they want, because that kind of money just goes out. It doesn't,
well, okay, but
it doesn't come back in right now.
But do you not believe they were in the hunt for Antetokounmpo? In fact, I believe that Masai's whole long-term game plan revolved around getting Giannis. And they didn't. No, it's not blaming anybody for that. It just didn't happen.
Right.
But that was the guy they wanted as the centerpiece for the next 5 years. And they had a team that essentially could support Giannis's skill set. They didn't have to get rid of anybody. They could just plug him in and play. Keep going.
Yeah.
Lowry's going to be gone in a while. They got rid of their two big guys. They were going to play if they got Giannis. There was all kinds of things that were done that lead you to believe that Giannis was going to be the cornerstone of the franchise in the future.
Mm-hmm.
He's off the table. Now you got to go make a deal. They weren't interested in Harden. Harden's a one-dimensional guy and a potential problem.
Although I'll tell you what, the Nets appear to be doing okay with him.
Well, fine. They've loaded up, and they've got 3 star players, at least 2 of whom will potentially bring the franchise down at some point, because that's the kind of characters they are.
You don't think Steve Nash can harness them?
What makes you think? Why? Because he's a Canadian? I love Steve Nash.
Good guy.
Has Steve Nash ever shown you his temper, his ability to command a room? I have the utmost respect for him as a person and as a basketball player. He was the best this country may ever produce, Steve Nash. And as a coach, if the ship is floating along beautifully, there's nobody better to stay out of the way than Steve Nash.
But
if you have to snap the whip, is Steve Nash the guy who's going to do that? I've never seen that. Have you?
No, but I'll tell you what. I do think that there's another side of Steve Nash that we've never seen in the public.
Well, based on what?
First of all, his successes, and not just in basketball, but in business. And I think that what Steve does very well is he knows exactly what happens behind closed doors, and I think he uses that. And I actually think that in many ways, even from the opening night of the seasons, Nash has kind of hardened himself, pardon the pun, but hardened up a little bit, and is thought he could coach one way, and I think he's saying, okay, listen, we have to put rules in place, and he's created many more parameters for his team, and I think that's one of the reasons they're more successful.
Haven't seen it, John, and I hope you're right.
Yeah.
I don't look at any ill. I'm sitting here saying this is a team whose greatest enemy is not some other team, it's themselves. This team has the ability to self-destruct, and probably the only person who can save it, if it's even possible, is the head coach, and maybe Steve Nash.
But by the way, isn't that true?
Isn't that by being nice?
isn't that true? I think Steve Nash does have a bit of a mean side. He's as much a competitor as any of those guys.
Never seen it.
But by the way, doesn't your statement about teams that could implode, doesn't that really apply to almost every NBA team that has 3 stars? I mean, and that's when you look at this whole system that has been created, I really think the first team that went this way were the Celtics, when Garnett was there. And then obviously what happened in Miami and what's happened a few other places LeBron's been. But isn't that really the case? Is
LeBron
every
isn't
one of
really.
those teams? No, but every one of those teams could implode.
LeBron has not. He hasn't done that. I mean, there are things that LeBron does and says that you may disagree with, but in a general sense, LeBron's got a solid head on his shoulders. He doesn't cause problems. I don't see the Lakers self-destructing because of ego or problems. Brooklyn, on the other hand, oh yeah. I mean it's almost inevitable, John. Don't you think?
Well, yeah, I'm one of those guys. I hope not. I just hope not. I mean, I'm a Durant fan. Kevin Durant to me is, God, when he's playing his game, is one of the most entertaining athletes I've ever seen.
Yeah, but Durant's been mopey too. Durant's
no, that's the problem
around him. With
no
the
question
and the things.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's real. I think he could be a problem.
Yeah,
but that will pale in comparison to the other two. Pale. No one will care about what Durant thinks if the other two go kaboom. Yeah. And I think that's only a matter of time.
And the only thing I would say is that if there's one person that can say I've walked a mile in your shoes and I can make a difference, it is a guy like Steve Nash, who I would hope and think that can relate to both. I mean, all these guys have something in common. The only thing that Steve Nash doesn't have that the other three do is a championship ring.
I don't know whether these clowns in professional sports today actually have respect for what Steve Nash accomplished. I think it's all about them, and anybody who gets in their way, they'll just diminish. I don't know whether that kind of.
Wow.
I think Steve's history is entirely on the playing court. It's not in coaching. I think you can develop a reputation in coaching, but I don't. And Steve may do that, but he hasn't done that yet. Mm-hmm. And so all that they're going to respect right now is his playing ability, and I don't think they will. I think they say, "Oh, I'm better than Steve Nash was." Anyway, let's move on. We have a few other things to discuss. You know what this week is? Super Bowl week.
No, there's no way because there's no news.
Well, look, I think you know that I hate this 2-week Super Bowl malaise. I sort of understand from a business standpoint why that's the case, but geez, in advance, before the year starts, years in advance, where the Super Bowl is going to be and what date the Super Bowl is going to be on.
Sure.
So planning for it, whether you are the National Football League or some business guy who wants to spend $50,000, $100,000 to go to the Super Bowl, honest to God, you can plan in advance.
By the way, do you know where the Super Bowl is being played?
Yeah, it's in Tampa.
Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure.
Which is where I went to my last Super Bowl and swore I'd never go again.
Well, that's the one you were sitting in the basement watching on a big screen.
Well, I did have seats.
Yes, I know, but you ended up
auxiliary press box with
because you're auxiliary.
Yeah. Well, I'd been there for 3 weeks before doing stuff for Global, prep for the Super Bowl. 3 straight weekends I went down there, and then went down for the game itself, which I didn't really work. But I'm sitting there, and Shakey's beside me, and it was cold. It was like, I don't know, in the 40s or something. And it was Oakland. Can't remember who they played. And
Made an impact on. Was that Oakland, Washington?
it might have been. It's 84. Anyway, so there was a tent underneath the stands. This is the old Tampa Stadium, of course.
Right. The
Which
sombrero.
Yeah. So it was okay. And was a tent underneath the stands. So we go all the way down. Like we're in like row 60 or something. Go all the way down and we go under there, and it was cold. We're cold. So we have a cup of coffee and kind of warm up, and there's a big ass screen there. And all right, here we go, almost ready for the third quarter. And I looked at Hunt and I said, I'm not going back up there. I said, this is perfectly good. I know I flew for 3 hours on an airplane, and I know I'm staying in a hotel, and I blah, 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 blah. And I could be doing this at home, but I'm here and it's cold and I can't see hardly anything from row 60. I'm staying here. And Hunt said, good idea. Me too. And that's where we watched the second half of the game. Anyway, so it's COVID. There'll be, now they're going to do limited fans, right?
I was led to, well, of course, things have changed since the new administration, but the governor said that he was hoping to have 25,000 people in the stadium. But that sounds high to me.
Florida is an idiot.
I know, but
we've already established that.
Yeah, but that sounds high to me. But that's what he was hoping for, 25,000.
But there'll be some anyway.
Yeah.
Is it quiet because it's not a news story? No. It's quiet because we are living in an age where face-to-face interaction is improper and not allowed. And that's what the Super Bowl has become. Super Bowl week, the week before the week of the Super Bowl, the ink-stained wretches type all their deep thoughts, and then they all converge on the Super Bowl. And tomorrow would be Media Day.
Right.
And that's when things start to ramp up. And then the parties are the other reason to go to the Super Bowl. And I've been to many of the Super Bowl parties, not recently, and they're generally, if you like parties, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. So all that stuff's off the table now. Now you're left with a football game. How many times can you write about Mahomes versus Brady?
Well,
what other story is there?
I suspect there'll be a virtual media day tomorrow, somehow, some way.
Sure.
And we'll start to get a bit more hype. But the fact that since the two conference championships, and the 43-year-old versus the 25-year-old, there really hasn't been a drop. And I mean, hardcore football fans could say there's football all the time, and I've got it, and there's tons of TV shows about it. They're right, but trying to grab the peripheral listener viewer, that hasn't happened this year at all. That has not happened this year at all. So you're right about when we were thinking about what we were going to talk about today. Yesterday, I said, well, we could talk about football, but there isn't much football. And there isn't much hype. And, Rob Gronkowski hasn't walked into Media Day wearing something silly. And
at the end of the day, it's a football game. And it's at the end of the season where people have talked about all the factors with both teams for 20 weeks. And at the end of it, most Super Bowls don't have a big storyline. And the only storyline that
this is a pretty good storyline. But by the way, because this is an NFL,
but you can't do it. You can't write it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, but by the way, because this is an NFL year that, quite frankly, as a television sport for me, I've enjoyed more than a lot in the last few years. I've enjoyed the football in the last years, and the storylines and the pureness of the. No, that's an awful word to use, but actually watching football. I'm not a gambler, so I don't worry about lines, but watching football games, I've been able to watch more football this year, and I've really enjoyed it. I think the NFL's been an excellent product this year. and some
Well,
really
I
good
only I
stories.
only watch one team,
Yeah,
and
but you watch the Browns.
I watch the Browns, and I'm happy to do that. I mean, every once in a while, I'd watch Brady.
Oh, and
I
they've
watch
been
the
fun to
Raiders once or
watch.
twice, but I mean, basically, I like the NFL. I'm not investing that kind of time anymore into it. And so I had a great year because the Browns had a good year,
Yeah,
and I watched a lot of football.
yeah. No, you watched 16 weeks.
Well, I didn't watch the Browns every week.
Oh, you
I'm
didn't?
not investing in the NFL package to see a whole bunch of games I couldn't care less about. So if the Browns were on TV, and they actually were on quite a bit this year,
Oof.
um,
They have become a there's something about the Browns. When you look at all the commercials that Baker Mayfield is doing, they have become other than they've become a popular marketing tool for football in so many ways. It's fascinating how outside of in the old days, outside of what the Patriots or what Brady would do, or when we were kids, the Jets and the Giants would do, the Cleveland Browns, they become a bit of a folk story in football, and that's why people seem to follow them.
well, I'm not a fan of the Buffalo Bills, but I don't hate the Buffalo Bills. I have no feeling for the Buffalo Bills one way or the other. But I wish they weren't in the National Football League. And you want to know why?
Because then you'd see Cleveland football games.
Correct.
Yeah,
Which is what I grew up
yeah.
watching before the Bills came along.
See, it's
And
interesting.
now
Yeah.
the Bills, if the Bills are playing at the same time as the Cleveland Browns, I know we're going to see the Bills and we're not going to see the Browns. And that, I get it. I'm not angry about it. But if I had my druthers, the Bills would just tootle off and
That's
leave me
harsh.
and the Browns
That
to
is harsh.
commiserate
That is
together.
harsh. That is harsh.
And most years it is commiserating.
Yeah. Well, but
Super
I
Bowl.
guess that's really but the fascination for me too, Bob, is that we talk about the Browns, but this isn't the Browns that you followed.
Well,
This
of
isn't the
course not.
Browns. This isn't the Browns.
Well, of course not. But
This
it's
is an
still the same.
expansion team. This is an expansion team.
Oh, it's not an expansion team anymore. It's been a long time. It's been 20-something years.
But it's not the Cleveland Browns. It's not the Cleveland Browns of Jim Brown and the one that you watched as a kid.
Well, no, those guys are retired, John.
They're not playing anymore?
No.
Oh.
Although there are moments where I think Jim Brown could still go out there and, I mean, at the very least, he could still make the slow walk back to the huddle. I don't know whether he could
dragging his leg, and the defense saying, "Oh, we're in trouble now," because he's pretending to be hurt.
All right, one more quick thing. Well, two more quick things. It is so difficult for me to. We haven't talked a whole lot of hockey. We've talked hockey in a generic sense a lot, but about the specifics of who's good and who's not. Now that we're 10, 12 games into the.
You know how many days? You know how many days the regular season's been underway?
No, sir.
20.
There you go.
20 days.
We're about 10, 12 games in, right?
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Feels like forever. It feels like forever, but we're 20 days into the regular season.
So I thought of this, and I know long-suffering Leaf fans, of which I, again, am not one, are just love to take every possible opportunity to point out that the Toronto Maple Leafs, I believe, are in first place in the Canadian division. As if this is some great achievement.
Excuse me. The Scotiabank North Division?
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Okay.
And I just, it's not that I don't understand it. I've come to understand this. But here's the intriguing thing. At the beginning of the year, all of the pundits, you among them, opined that the Canadian teams may be on a kind of an epic high. Optimism, virtually every team except Ottawa.
Correct. And right? If you talk to Eugene, he had the epic high too.
Oh no, I get that. Yeah. But he's Eugene, he owns the team, and so Vancouver could be great. Calgary should be great. Edmonton made a move last year. They'll be great. Winnipeg's pretty good. a couple of breaks, they could be great. The Maple Leafs, my God, they're like, they could win 50 Stanley Cups in a row.
How about Montreal?
Montreal made a bunch of changes, looks pretty good there. Ottawa, well, Ottawa's Ottawa. Here's the dilemma. The Toronto Maple Leafs right now, and the Montreal Canadiens are clearly the two best teams in the Canadian division as of right now. Now, Vancouver's won, 4 or 5 in a row?
Well, they've won 4 in a row, but 3 of them were against Ottawa.
So, okay, Toronto, Montreal. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Who have they played? Played the other Canadian teams. What if the Canadian division is horseshit, to be blunt? What if the teams in Canada are as crappy as they have been for the last 20 years for the most part? And now all you're doing is playing the weak sisters. What if that's the case? Now, I'm not saying it is, but it just occurred to me, I don't know. Where's the test? Where's the game against Tampa Bay?
Oh, yeah.
Or the game against Dallas, the 2 Stanley Cup finalists from a few months ago. Sure. Where's that game to give you some kind of an idea of where these Canadian teams are? We don't have that now. So now what we're left with is maybe Alphonse playing Gaston. You take it out.
So does this mean your philosophy of, I like this Canadian division, it should last for a long time, has changed already?
No. It doesn't really mean anything right now because there's nobody in the stands. And as it progresses, I think it'll get more intense. The dilemma is only, how do you understand who's good and who's not? And remember, a Canadian division in normal times would still play a significant number of games against the rest of the league. Correct. And of course, because of COVID, that's not happening. I'm not blaming anybody for that, but it is one of the uniquenesses of this scenario we are living in that doesn't give us the opportunity to really gauge the quality of these teams. And what if the 7 worst teams in the NHL are in Canada? What if? And then the Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens would be respectively the 26th and 27th best teams in the NHL?
It's an interesting thought, Bob.
What if? And I don't know. But I'm not suggesting that's true, but it might be.
You could say the same thing about the other 3 divisions as well, though, right?
Sure, you could.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
You don't know.
Yeah.
But part of the fun of watching a team play and watching an entire season unfold is those occasional moments where you get a game against a team that you know is good.
Sure.
And you go, okay, my team has won 3 straight games and they beat 3 crappy teams, but now they're going to play the defending Stanley Cup champions. We know they're good. Here's the saliva test.
Right.
And we don't have that now.
No, you're right. And really what you have right now in all of the divisions, and it's funny for Canadians, I'm a little concerned that they're so consumed in this division that they're not paying attention to the rest of the league, because there's some pretty good hockey teams in the rest of the league, but we're so consumed in Canada with this 7-team division that other than Ottawa, and Ottawa's now lost 8 in a row, other than Ottawa, every game is against a team that could beat us or we could beat them. And that's exactly what happened on Saturday night. Montreal, we thought was good, lost to Calgary at home. Toronto, we think's the best team, lost to Edmonton on the road. Vancouver went into Winnipeg. Winnipeg's really good. Vancouver had only played Ottawa. Vancouver beat them badly on Saturday night. I think this by the end of the 56 game schedule, Bob, this division, other than Ottawa, will drive you nuts because it's going to be parity. It's going to be
and you know what that says to me? The reason there's parity in this division, because there isn't a good team in there.
I wonder.
There isn't one good team in there. There's a bunch of mediocre. A couple may make the playoffs. The rest of them won't.
Four of them are going to make the playoffs. 4 of them are going to make the playoffs.
Well, they're going to because of the situation.
Right.
But I'm saying in a normal year
okay.
where you have, why do people think the Canadian teams are so much better than they have been historically? We haven't had a Stanley Cup winner in a long time. We haven't had a team go to the Stanley Cup final in a long time. As a general rule, like what would be the average number of Canadian teams that would make the playoffs? 2? Average. 2?
I would say.
What's the most?
I would say
ever?
3.
What's the most?
Well,
ever?
I remember. Other than you can't count last year because they changed the rules to make more teams in the playoffs. Yeah. I think 5.
It's the most ever.
Yeah, I think 5.
I'm not even sure I remember 5 making it. I can remember 4, but I can remember some years where there were like 1.
No, I remember 5. I do. I remember 5 teams. So, they didn't last very long.
Well, again.
Yeah.
There's no history to suggest that these Canadian teams are significantly better. Mm-hmm. And this whole talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs being a Stanley Cup, I mean, I saw predictions from the numbskulls at Sportsnet among them suggest, Toronto Maple Leafs are going to win the Stanley Cup.
But here's the thing.
Really?
What we do know is that we haven't been able to ever guarantee this. So we're going to have a Canadian-based team in the Final Four. We are.
Well,
that's because the rules. That's because they changed the rules to make it work.
And you know what? They should keep it that way because that may be the only way one of the Canadian teams gets to the Final Four again.
Well, I know there's 7 owners that would agree with you.
We want to get out here. We've been taking a long time, but we don't want to leave without making mention of the passing of a dear, dear friend. And I say that with all sincerity. I think it's a phrase that's probably used too often, and there isn't meaning in it. But I've known Saul Korman probably 40 years, and I tell you this, and this is not a lie. Rarely did a week go by where my phone wouldn't ring and it was Saul. I didn't call him very often, I confess. I'd go see him, sometimes just to say hello, sit around upstairs and chat with him, sometimes to go and get some clothes. But almost every week, Saul would call just to chat. How are you? How's the family? How's this? How's that? Da, 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 da. And whine and complain about radio and advertising and how the station was taking advantage of him and ripping him off and da da da. But here was a guy whose friendship was real, and whose generosity was extraordinary. He ran a golf tournament for a hospital. He did a lot of work for that hospital.
East York, I believe. East York Hospital.
East General, I think.
Yeah.
Would there be a taste of the Danforth without Saul Korman?
No.
I mean, he was the face of the Danforth. He was a face of that entire street and that all the restaurants and all the other shops and stores there. There wasn't a single person for a mile in either direction on the Danforth that didn't know Saul Korman. And I don't mean just recognized him, but knew him because he talked to all of them. And he passed away, I believe, age 86. I might have guessed a little older, actually. In fact, I did when I was asked yesterday. But a true friend, a true gentleman, and I counted this morning. I actually have 40 jackets and suits upstairs in my closet, 40, which is a ridiculous number. But as you know, when you're or have been in television, you got to have a lot, so you don't look the same every day. With maybe 2 exceptions, they all have. And I know you can't probably read this, but there's a Corey's logo inside there. I'm trying to make it work for you, but it says Corey's, and under that it says my name. And that's what Saul used to put in the jackets. So I think 38 of the 40 are from Corey's. It's the only place I shopped for menswear. I have a couple things that were panic buys while I was on the road. But otherwise, the only place I shop. And when COVID continues, I will continue to shop there. And I never got paid by Saul. I never did a commercial for Saul, I don't think. But if he'd asked me, I'd have done it. Mm. And it's a sad day. Yesterday was a sad day, but at the same time, we should celebrate the fact that this was a guy who touched so many lives. I got 200,000 views on a tweet that I sent out. I had so many responses of people telling little stories about how they went there and what a thrill it was to go upstairs into Saul's office and have Saul talk to you. Because he was more than just a guy who sold suits. He was like a media celebrity because of his commercials. And when they were on, John, everybody hated them. People complained all the time. So unprofessional. It's just Saul yakking about stuff. He doesn't even talk about clothes most of the time. He talks about, going to the island or his friends on the Danforth or this store or that guy, telling stories, yada, yada. But you got a chance to meet Saul Korman? Probably 100 people told me how exciting it was just to meet him. Anyway, I don't want to take up all the time. You have some thoughts?
Well, the first awareness I had of Saul Korman, I was going to university in Vancouver and would walk down every day and buy the Globe and Mail. And it would cost me $1 in Vancouver. And I would open up, and because I knew I was moving to Toronto and I wanted to learn about Toronto. And I would open up to the sports page and read Dick Beddoes and see Rex McLeod. And then in the bottom left-hand corner of one of the sports pages was Corey's comments. Mm-hmm. And Saul wrote a couple of little tidbits, little gossipy things. And to me, he was part of the fabric of what I viewed as Toronto in the 70s. So I moved here. I've lived here twice in my life, and the first time I lived here, I worked at a radio station. I worked at CFRB, and they ran Saul's radio commercials. Saul Korman, 569 the Danforth. And then obviously through my association with you, got to meet Saul, got to talk to Saul. When my son needed a suit, there was only one place I would go. And Saul looked after my son, and it was Saul's son, Sean, that was so helpful to my son, Jake. And even in the time since we've left the station, Bob, I haven't had the weekly calls, but I've had a couple of calls from Saul. Mm-hmm. How you doing? What's going on? Why did they do it? I said, Saul, and because Saul was genuinely concerned. And so there was the human side of Saul. And then I would challenge anybody in any marketing school across North America that wants to know how to do branding, is if they studied what Saul Korman did for 40 years, more than 40 years, to create an association. And so that's why everybody was hit so hard yesterday. That part of something they've always was part of the fabric of Toronto and part of their day-to-day life. Saul Korman was gone. And he would be the one thing I would tell you, and you know him better than I do. You knew him better than I do. He would be thrilled that he touched so many people. He would be thrilled that he touched so many.
Well, it's a sad day. And even more sad, the fact that Saul will be laid to rest. And in the Jewish community, they don't wait a long time. I don't know. I don't know. It might be today. Mm-hmm. And because of COVID, there's no chance to go and pay your respects. I did it just a few years ago. We did it with Myrna, his wife, when she passed. Tragically, we've done it with two of his kids that passed away way too young. And these are all the tragedies that Saul lived through, but he did it bravely. And today we won't have an opportunity because of this environment we live in to say the goodbyes that we want to. But you can only hope that somewhere Saul's looking down and is watching this podcast and knows how we feel about him.
And would be saying, Bobcat, I don't want to put hems on those damn pants.
And I don't want, you can't wear a vest. I'm not making a tuxedo with a vest.
That's right.
Because I used to have that argument with him all the time.
Oh.
I miss you already, Saul, and it's not going to be the same. In any event, basketball, I assume on Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
Smith and Jones are planned, and then I forget who we have somebody. Oh, we don't have anybody for Friday yet, I guess, but we're looking at a few options.
Apparently, there's a football game coming up. So
it could. What are you going to talk about? I know what we're going to talk about. We're going to waste everybody's time, Brady Mahomes, for a half an hour.
I know.
Okay, it's been done. There's nothing we can add to that conversation.
Lou Groza versus Jan Stenerud?
That would be a more interesting conversation, especially now. We wish you all a good week, and we'll see you Wednesday if the creek don't rise. For John, it's Bob. Goodbye from Toronto.